So what wing were you flying today, Nancy?
I was flying the gorgeous, playful Advance EPSILON DLS.
I was also flying a gorgeous, playful EPSILON DLS.
What a coincidence. What a lovely wing. Let's start on the ground. So building a wall and ground handling and all of that. What a dream. Responsive, so you can build your wall. It doesn't flap about too much. It sort of sits, and we've flown the wing now on lighter days, sort of doing forward launches, reverse launches, and a bit more wind. Just seemed to be easy to control. Just didn't require too much pilot input. Didn't require over braking, oversteering, or anything nothing frantic. It just responded to what you were doing.
Yeah, I agree. So the inflation is really easy and it just fills up nicely. It's not like hard to get the air in and get the glider inflated, as you'd expect with this level of glider.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a key point to me. I think it's really important for a low B wing that on the ground the ground handling needs to be really, really nice and easy, very forgiving. It should be responsive yet forgiving. And I found the EPSILON DLS, I actually found the ground handling really hard to fault. I was trying to think of some faults about it, and I honestly am really struggling to do that. The general behaviour is getting towards what I will call perfect for the class of glider, and just very, very easy. And so building the wall's really easy, holding the glider down is nice and easy.
Yes.
But I did find that when the wind's stronger, just using the brakes, harder to hold the glider down. It wanted to come up and fly, and then I definitely wanted to take at least a wrap. But using the rear risers is a much better thing to do rather than taking wraps. Don't ever do that thing of wrapping around the brakes. It doesn't really work, and then you end up with your brake line stuck in your hands.
Yeah.
And then the inflation, how did you find?
It's the inflation comes up progressively. I found I really could control it, and by putting it to one side, putting it across, it really sort of, you could feel what was going on with the wing, and you could really communicate, or you could feel the communication from the glider to where it's going, so that you can just hold it with a brake. It felt very intuitive.
Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying about the feeling of control. That's the thing I really noticed about it. Doing the launch perfectly, just pulling up with a nice breeze, easy to control. But if I tried, for example, on purpose to kind of pull the glider up a bit too hard and make it come up quick, it had a really good control with the brakes, where I could easily, just by stepping towards the glider and pulling a little bit of brake, I could adjust the speed of the glider really well without stalling it or it whipping up and coming up too fast. So I think that's what I really noticed. That's the thing that makes it so nice to ground handle. It's that the speed as it comes up, just by stepping towards the glider or using the brake, is very controllable, and the glider doesn't have any tendency to keep dropping back. It wants to keep coming up to fly.
Yes. The playing around kiting with it, which is really, I think that's where the playfulness, I really feel like this is really just sort of nice to have. It was really just kind of, you could play with it and have a lot of fun.
There was a bit where we were filming and we were going to just do a little bit of kiting and to get a bit of ground handling, flying and stuff like that, and we both were just carried on playing around, running about, playing and messing about, because it's so much fun to play with.
Yes, it was, definitely.
So now we're going to launch. We're going to take off now.
Right.
We're still on the ground. Let's get off the ground, let's get in the air. It lifts off really nicely. Did you notice that? It's kind of, as the glider comes up, you give it a little bit of speed, because the glider is very pitch stable, but not in a kind of hanging back way. It just sits nicely above your head. As you run off, the glider's in a nice position above you, so as you run off with it, it's got a really nice glide and lift, and I found myself just lifting off from the ground really easily every time.
Yes, I do agree with that. Actually, it's sort of almost something that I hadn't noticed, but as you're saying it actually does ring true, because there was a few times where sometimes I would have actually normally have had a kind of a jerk or a bit more of a run.
And you have that thing where the glider, some gliders you kind of run off and they kind of drop back and pitch forward, and or also the other thing is it's very stable in the roll, so it's sat there. So as I was running off, I even was being a little bit numpty-ish on purpose, honest, and not doing my launches perfectly, and the glider was forgiving that. It was sitting nicely above my head, not pitching backwards and forwards or rolling around. And that is the difference between a glider that just lifts you off the hill nicely and one that doesn't.
You can feel the glider, you can feel what's going on
Gives
with
a nice
the air.
level of feedback.
Yeah, good level of feedback.
But also very calm.
Yes, and they're not too busy, not too chatty, not too sort of, oh, I want to go and land feeling.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying flying the Epsilon DLS.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the flights we've had in the conditions. It's a real pleasure to thermal. It's a pleasure just soaring and playing around on the hill, isn't it? I find it really pleasurable. The handling is really nice. I do think Advance with this latest generation of gliders, the Yota DLS and previously the Sigma 11 and now the Epsilon DLS, they seem to have really got a nice balance, a nice sort of, the handling has just got a really nice feeling. It's very direct, it's very precise and direct and progressive. You can feel exactly where the lift is as well. The feedback is really nice. Yeah. And the glider's turning, they're agile, isn't it?
It is agile. Yeah, and it turns progressively, doesn't dig in, but
doesn't roll.
Doesn't roll.
It turns nice and flat.
Yeah, it turns flatly, but it's not that boring kind of dampened feeling. It's got that playfulness. I think it's a really
but it does the playfulness without being, it's not the kind of go-kart playfulness that we sometimes have with, say, the Skywalk Tequila 4, which was very playful, a very playful glider, but quite rolly, and also had a tendency, if you put it into a spiral, would go, well, a tight turn, it would go into a spiral. The Epsilon DLS, they've managed to get a very playful feeling, and it's kind of intuitive, the handling, and you can turn very directly, but it doesn't roll excessively. So the glider's turning flat, but also turning quite tightly. It's a glider that you can thermal really, really well. Again, flying with some very good pilots today on some high performance gliders, and I felt like the Epsilon DLS loaded about 3/4 of the way up the weight range, and it was climbing really, really well. I think it climbs really nicely. It's a glider that's really good for thermaling and a very good climb rate. Did you find that?
I certainly was finding that. Yes, I was getting very good sink rate and flying around nicely, but still had the penetration as well. So
gliding repeatedly with some other gliders. I think it glides really well. I think it's very good for the class. I think it's one of the better gliders in the low B class, and keeping up with the mid Bs. So I think it's got really good glide performance. Yeah. So the speed bar, again, today I did the speed bar a lot. On every single glide I did upwind. I did at least a third to half bar, but I did quite a few glides where I just held on full speed bar. One thing I forgot to do is to look at my GPS to get an idea of the speed increase, but it felt good for the class. It definitely felt pretty good for the class. It had a really good increase of speed, so I guess that means it's got to be at least around 12 kilometers an hour, 14 kilometers an hour. And I also noticed it kept its glide really well, even at full speed. So the sink rate did obviously increase, but the efficiency felt really, really good. And I noticed the leading edge kept its shape really well.
Very clean.
Yeah, it didn't have, like some gliders get a lot of dimples falling them and they start to flutter and feel edgy and nervy. And not at all with the Epsilon DLS. It feels really solid.
Yeah, I found the same. Nice and solid feeling.
Testing out the agility of the Epsilon DS and the sort of fun factor as well, and pushing it a little bit outside of the normal envelope. So I did some fairly big wing overs on it today, just trying to see what's it like for doing that sort of thing. And that's not every Epsilon DLS pilot is going to be doing that kind of thing, but I do think some pilots do like that, want a low B glider, and then that's fun to fly, and that's quite agile. And I found it really good for doing some really quite big wing overs. It built up energy, feels really on rails. I was able to really enjoy myself doing some very nice coordinated wing overs, and it was a real pleasure doing that. So it's a really fun glider from that point of view. I also did some collapses on the glider, some big collapses, frontal and asymmetric, To be honest, that's all covered in the tests, but it's interesting to try it out in real life just for the risers, and it's very well behaved for the class. Really, definitely a low B glider. The stall point, the Epsilon DLS, I did some search for stall, and just if you're holding the bottom of the brake handles, you can reach the stall point by pulling it down, but it feels kind of a bit on the longest side, so it's you generally are going to hold it with a half wrap or something like that, aren't you? Or take a wrap like that, and then you can easily reach, quite easily reach the stall point, but there's lots of warning for it. The pressure builds up quite a bit, and it's a delay. It's really obvious, the stall point, I felt. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we haven't talked that much about actually the brake pressure as an overall thing. And, I would say it's on the lighter side, but also very precise.
Yes,
It's light, not heavy, precise. Yeah, you really can feel you're getting the turn, and you can. It's talking to you. It's telling you where it needs to be. The brake pressure is one of the lightest of the low B gliders. It's got light handling, but very precise and informative, like you say. It's not, some gliders can be light and vague, but actually no, the Epsilon DLS has got really pretty light brakes. I mean, not super light, so it's not like there's nothing there. You've got some pressure there, but relatively speaking, I think it might be about the lightest brake pressure of the low Bs, but together with that real precision of handling as well, so, and that agility, that nimble kind of handling, so that's really nice. And big ears, just as something to say as well about the big ears, very nice line that you can identify.
With the split A's.
So it's right there, and they can come in well, don't they? They just roll in nicely, good size without having to faff too much. You've got decent size big ears, and
they're very stable, aren't they? I did big ears repeatedly on it, and they just pop. Very well behaved. And equally, when you're finishing with your big ears, pop, out. You just let go, and they just came out on their own. And I didn't find them really physical to hold in either. No, it wasn't physical at all. A little bit of pressure pulling them in, but not really high, and holding them in. So even the big ears seem to be really nicely done, and a good descent rate. Not a big increase of descent rate, but good. And but then adding the speed bar on, I did that as well, and I could really see when I was gliding next to you, and I did big ears, and with full speed bar, then my sink rate increased quite a lot. The Epsilon DLS for me feels very much like it's the low B version of the Yota DLS. So who are you going to recommend this for? Epsilon DLS in a nutshell. In a nutshell. I enjoyed it. It's a lovely wing. It's definitely playful and fun, and I do think it's just a lovely glider for a lot of pilots. Just a really lovely, very sorted, perfectly pitched low B wing, a real pleasure to fly with really excellent performance, and I could fly Epsilon DLS loads and really enjoy myself on it. Actually, I liked what you said. It was a good point you made about Epsilon pilots, because we have had a few. We have got a few of them. We've got a few customers that over the years have carried on flying Epsilons since the Epsilon 7 at least. And they've carried on, and they might have skipped a generation, but when they come back round again, they've ended up once again going for an Epsilon, because they're just so happy with the package that they get. And we have already had some pilots who were flying the Epsilon 9 before, and now they've upgraded to the Epsilon DLS, and they're very happy, that's for sure. One of them today is kind of bounding around the hill saying how happy he is with the Epsilon DLS, so I think that says it all. It does say it all. It's a lovely wing. Okay, slightly funny story, I'm going to tell you this. So I was having so much fun that I thermaled up and thought, oh look, I can see home from here, and I'll glide off for home. And then I landed and realised that I had both of the car keys, both of the van keys with me.
Yes, we had just made a plan that we were going to fly around, finish off the flying so that we can come and film and do this together.
Yeah, so that it wouldn't end up being really late like it is now.
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the Advance EPSILON DLS.
And we look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.